Good morning. It's November the 11th, 2022. And we're processing this deer through the meat grinder that has been 13 days since the field dressing. You may as well say a day more because I shot her in the afternoon and couldn't find her until the next morning. So that would be 13 and a half days with, I'd say, 10 to 12 hours laying in the woods, you know, to warm up and all that kind of stuff. Everybody gets all excited about deer, getting them real quick and getting them gutted and field dressed. Now, I imagine it was upwards to 70 degrees that night, 60 maybe at a low. But the thing about deer meat is that it's extremely stable meat. It doesn't have any fat much in it. And so basically then we dressed it out. I dressed it out the gutless method, meaning I did not cut into I left the guts in the deer. I skinned the deer and cut the meat off around all of that, so there was no gut involvement at all in it. I think that's what spoils meat, is to get the smell of the guts in there, like if you gut shot one and all that kind of stuff. Alright, now you'll notice on here, this is what they call silver skin. This is very hard to chew up. But it's not hard to chew up when you grind it into hamburger. And I like to cut it in long strips like this because it pulls it through the grinder. And it's easier. And I said the date, I forgot now what it was, November whatever, but we're like 3 days out from the midterm elections and we still don't know the outcome. But it's looking more and more, it seems like, that the Republicans are going to take over the House, I'm talking national, and the Senate, which is bad news for the Democrats. The Democrats are not happy about what has happened. But we still don't know. Arizona and Nevada are dragging their heels. I think it's odd that Florida counted their votes in one, that day, and these other states out there can't seem to get it together. I'm going to show you this that might help you. If you're going to do this by hand, talked to a guy yesterday. He wanted to know who processed my deer. He said, I killed one and I'm fixing to take it to the processor. Well, I'm the processor. I'll tell you why. You pay a bunch of money for those people to do that. And you end up, to me, defeating one of the reasons to hunt, is to get some food at a reasonable price. You end up paying a lot of money for. Now see, I hope you saw what I was doing. I'm cutting this big chunk of meat in such a way that I leave it connected, and then cut another strip. You see right here, leave it connected. Well, I outfoxed myself then, but I did get this. Now that's got the silver skin. This is part of the ham, by the way. And I didn't do the traditional cutting the ham off. I cut the meat off of the ham while it was still hanging. I just cut it off in big chunks until there's nothing left but the bone. Back to the midterms. Herschel Walker's in a runoff with Raphael Warnock. If you looked at some of my other videos earlier, I said, and by the way, Herschel Walker is from Wrightsville, Georgia, which is just right up the road from where we live. And Although Herschel is not a perfect human being, which none of us are, we feel like that he is a lot more desirable than the Democrat Raphael Warnock, who is voted in lockstep with the what we call the deep state, the Democrats that want to take our gun rights away. They basically want to enslave us, if you want to be honest about it. That's really what they're up to. Okay, so this is of 13 days, and what I wanted to tell you was that this laid a night in the woods, 13 days in the refrigerator, still smells great. Okay, so people would be surprised to find out that after 13 days, this is the aging process. It's a good idea to age. You see that right there now? That's a lot of silver skin right there. You can actually run this through there and it's not going to hurt you. I don't know what kind of nutritional value that silver skin has, but I know that it's hard to chew up. But just for the purpose of showing you, I'm going to show you what that meat grinder will do to that right there. It will grind it up, and when you grind it or slice it up, this actually slices it up. I'm not going to go through right now because it's got to have something behind it. I'll get back to that. But it cuts it up in little pieces, it shears it, and when it's turned into hamburger, here, see the white pieces in it? That's it right there. Now you wouldn't be able to chew up a very big piece of that. But when it's ground up, you can eat it. It's like chopped steak. They chop that stuff up so that it'll go through that you can eat it without getting it all, wrestling with it with your teeth. Now I'm gonna, whoop, that piece came apart. Try to show you how to cut this in strips. That's a pretty big strip right there. Too big, really. Now I turn it that way and go that way till I get down just to keep it connected. Now I turn it that way and cut this way with it. It'll be almost impossible to explain this in words, so a picture, as they say, is worth 1,000 words. And the reason I do this, I think I told you, was because it goes through the grinder better that way. Way better. And I'm still managing to get this piece kept together. One more time here. Okay, now, see what I got there? Alright, now this one right here is kind of fat. I'm going to actually make that part of it. Now I think this right here is pretty fat too. I'm going to cut this and extend this again. I don't know how long of a piece you could cut if you really tried hard. Look at that. That's just one big chunk of ham meat that I cut off of that hanging deer. Never did detach the ham, the back leg bones from the, you got to get it started in the hole. There we go. Now that's going to drive the gristle that I cut off and ran through there. And I'll show you when it comes out. I bet we'll see it was kind of a big piece of silver skin. Let's see if we can see. Alright.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, it's in there some. There it is right there. That's probably it. But let me tell you, you'll never notice that when you eat it. Unless you're just picky. This is the highest quality meat that you can get in the whole world, right here in Georgia. And you just have to go out with your crossbow Find you a place and be patient. Harvest your deer with reverence and manage your, wherever you're allowed to hunt deer. Think about it that it's you got a certain number of deer out there. You don't want, I don't like to shoot baby deer, you know, yearlings, because they haven't grown up. They're not got much meat on them. And I don't specifically try to shoot big bucks. Big bucks are the ones that you want to breed. And now don't get me wrong, if a big huge buck comes by me and turns the right way, I'm liable to pull the trigger on that crossbow. But as to try to set up just to shoot the big bucks, I don't do that. Might be because I never get a chance. There's some more of that silver skin right there. Okay, here's a piece of actual tendon right here. You see that? That's an actual piece of tendon from the deer. And that's even harder than silver skin. Now that I will, see there it is there, that I will cut off. The silver skin along the muscle, you see it actually turns into a tendon. Look at that. Show you a little bit of the anatomy. That wraps the muscle and then it turns in. So that was where it joined with the joint, with the actual tendon. And that's what the Native Americans and the Native people all over the world used to make their bowstrings out of. They would dry this stuff, beat it into fibers and make it into bowstring. And you probably, since I had that piece in there, you can make a bowstring out of it. You probably don't want to, if you come across a tendon like that, you probably want to cut it out because it'd be pretty hard to chew up a bowstring, wouldn't it? I'm just rambling right now. Oh, we've got this hurricane going through here right now, the one that did so much trouble down there in Florida. And I think it's rained quite a bit here, and it's going to clear off, I think, later today. As far as I can tell, all we got from it was a bunch of rain. Don't be afraid to age your deer. The best meat is that's aged. And I'll tell you what that really means. I hate to break it to you, but aged means that the rotting process has already started. The meat has started to break down. And back in the old days, they used to hang meat up in the pantry or the larder, which would be a room. A lot of times it was built into the side of the hill or underground, and it was fairly cool, and they would hang the meat in there, hang the birds that they shot and the rabbits and the deer meat and all, and hang it up in this room that was cooler, because it's cooler, you know, under the ground. That's why dogs dig a hole and lay in it around here, because it's cooler. But anyway, and they would let the process of actually rotting, if we crude about it, set up in place, and it would be easier to chew up, and it actually had a better taste. Now if you let it go too far, it becomes rotten or begins to rot. But there's been many a piece of meat eaten that was already partly rotting. It won't really hurt you, but it probably would be an acquired taste. This right here now goes to our dogs. They're not too picky. And I'm gonna put this in the freezer bags. We won't show you that, but I did want to show you one thing. I try to do a spiritual segment of my videos. We're going to try to grind this whole deer up. And I'm going to show you, do it right now and then be done. I'll bring it over here, dear. Or you can bring it over here. Okay, so this is what I want to show you. This book, The Return of the Gods by Jonathan Cahn, is a really new book. Jonathan Cahn, I don't know if you ever heard of him. You need to check him out. He's a top-notch Messianic Jewish Christian rabbi. He wrote, his big book that started this whole thing was The Harbinger. You need to read that too. I'm not going to try to tell you, but this basically, which gods are returning? This would be the pagan gods from the ancient world. Ishtar, Molech. These were gods, they called them the gods. And they're actually demons. And when Yeshua the Messiah, Jesus Christ, came 2,000 years ago, he essentially overthrew these gods from the pagan world. And of course they had him crucified and all that, but slowly but surely Christianity took over. The temples of the pagan gods where they sacrificed human beings and babies were torn down, and Christianity took hold all over the Western world, and the gods, essentially these pagan demonic gods, were really spirits is what they are, had to kind of go underground and hide. But they never went away. They just kept on picking at people. They're the ones that mess with people and get them jealous of each other and get wars started and all that kind of stuff. And then they vowed to come back. And so as America began to turn away from God back in the starting, I'd say at the turn of the last century before this one, in 1900, they began to turn away from God, and then up into the 50s and 60s, they excluded God from the classroom. They started having abortions in the 60s and all of these kind of things. The gods, according to Jonathan Cahn, have gotten a foothold, and they, of course, persecute Christians like they did back then. And basically, he says, Jonathan Cahn says that these pagan demonic gods have just about succeeded in taking over power in America. They've taken over the courts and the politicians and all that, and gotten all kind of laws passed, and therefore they're anti-God. And I don't want you to despair too much, but these demonic entities will be defeated by Yeshua, by Jesus again, and by the Christians that believe in it, but it's not going to be an easy thing. There's going to be hard times ahead. And in the final chapter of the Bible, we find out that they're totally overthrown for good, and it ushers in the kingdom of heaven. This book is very informative about those pagan gods. There's a lot of history in here, and if you're at all interested in what's going on and why things are acting the way they are now, it's the return of these pagan gods. Back in the time of Yeshua, the Western world was all pagan. They believed in these different gods, and they did bad things. There was war, there was human sacrifice, and it was just a normal thing. People thought it was normal, but now it's coming back. You can see a lot of these things. Abortion is a modern day equivalent of baby sacrifice. Return of the Gods. Get on there and look it up and buy it. It's not too expensive if you want to, or you can get an audio book of it and just listen to it while you're doing work or whatever.